Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Kapczynski, and I run a media agency based here in Los Angeles called Control Media. And I'm really excited to be able to be your moderator today for this panel. The topic is an interesting one. It's called Streaming plus the Creator Economy plus Podcasts equals a media realignment. And with me today, we have three fine gentlemen that we're going to discuss if it's really a realignment, or is it a disruption, or an evolution, or some other term that they'll come up with. So excited to have everyone here, and glad everyone is participating and listening in. We hope you enjoy the session. So we'll go ahead and get started. John, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then I'll ask Chris and so on to go through.
Sure, Mark. Thanks for having me. So I'm John Vitti, the founder and co-founder and CEO of Versus Game. We think about us as interactive content. We are a B2B company, and we have our own proprietary AI that powers this, creates this engine. So interactive content, what does that mean? So whenever you're watching your favorite show or your sporting event that day, you have an opinion, this prediction, you have that aha moment. I think this is going to happen moment. It's a reflex, but you can't really act on it there. So what do? You leave and you go talk, text, or go social, and that breaks the loop for a lot of these streaming and sports companies. They don't love that, right? So what we've done is we take their content, we make it interactive right there at the moment of intent, that moment of consumption. So now you can watch your show or a sporting event, you see whatever happens, you have a prediction, that opinion that happens, and you can act on it right there. And you can play with friends and win points and prizes. And what the problems that we're solving, we think is the number one problem for the streaming and sports, which is churn. These companies are churning out, millions of paying subscribers each and every month, which equates to hundreds of millions of dollars annually. And so, with so much content these days out there, is just too many options for me, right? So then I can go anywhere I want to. So we help to keep the people, the audience there for them.
Awesome. And I'll just mention for the audience, John, you're going to do a demo in a couple minutes. And then I know Chris and Jared also have their sizzle reels ready to go as well. So I know John will let you get ready for the demo as well.
Awesome.
Chris, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you, Mark. Happy to be participating. My name is Christopher Rodriguez. I'm the one of the co-founders and the chief creative officer at Revry. Revry is the largest LGBT and the first LGBTQ streaming network. We were born 10 years ago, before kind of all these niche networks started to pop up. But we've always kind of prided ourselves as disruptors in the space. We've recently been getting further into the original content development and really serving this community that has been very hungry for many years for authentic content that speaks to them, represents them, and also entertains them. So I'm happy to be here and talk about that, as well as our show King of Drag, which is the big hit show that we had last year, and we're gonna be premiering the second season in September.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to learn more about that because I know in our prep call it sounds pretty good. So I'll check that out. Well, welcome, Chris. Jared, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Jared, aka formerly Jingle Jared, also known as the Vibe Code Cowboy. And I have spent a career building creator platforms. My previous business, Jingle Punks, which I like to talk about a lot in parallel with my new business, did some incredible things in that it taught me the power of aggregating creators and also disruption points in traditional media. So Jingle Punks ended up disrupting production music by gathering lots of unsigned artists and making it available into content. Many people who've ever created a TV show or a marketing campaign probably came about Jingle Punks at one point or another. My new business, I had an aha moment that sort of paralleled with the advent of the AI moment that we're all living through, as well as the fast moving media known as podcasting. And I realized that I could build something very similar in the podcast space, bringing everyday creators tools that they might need to communicate with the world writ large. Much like the music business, the podcast business has really been a one percenters business with hits at the very top, and then a lot of people who are curious as to how they can participate as well. I see it as the next social media revolution to come. I'm calling it the era of social audio, and my new business is called Rebel Audio, and we're excited to show it off and talk more about disruption here today.
Awesome. Well, welcome as well, Jared. Really glad to have all of you. I know we're going to do a quick little round of demos and reels. So I'm pretty excited about that to incorporate that in. And I think, as we were just talking on the prep call, I mean, I think what you guys are doing is really innovative and, kind of pushing the boundaries and almost redefining, what media is today and what it can be. And so definitely excited to hear more about your businesses and how you're approaching things, and certainly how you're monetizing it and creating great experiences. And I guess with that, John, we're going to turn it over to you for a couple minutes to explain what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you. I have you in my living room here. So what I'm about to show you is our patented proprietary next gen AI that's never been seen before, never been done before. It's basically visual search, but around the entertainment, the streaming, sports, news, kind of that type of world. And so imagine you can point your phone at anything, and within 3 seconds or less, it understands what it's looking at, comes up with a summary, a video, these questions, get your friends involved, all of it within 3 seconds. So it lets you just jump into the moment. And it's very natural to hold up your phone because we're trained as a human species, to hold up that old camera phone. So I'm gonna just walk you through a live demo right now. Imagine if you are watching this sporting event, the Formula One, or you're watching any sports or any your favorite TV show, movie, podcast, news, whatever it is, and we found out you don't actually have to be in front of a TV. You can be at the stadium live. So you hold up your phone and then you start scanning what's right there. And should catch within, about a little over 3 seconds, but usually we get 3 seconds or less. It comes up with exactly what it's looking at, real-time stats, sponsored by, all the information about the drivers, everything right here for you to engage with. Thank you.
Super cool, John. Great demo. Always rough to do it live.
Live is always fun.
Always live demo, but glad the tech worked, and that's pretty cool. So we'll all have to check that out.
Thanks.
Thanks, John, for doing that. Chris, do you want to go next and play your reel and kind of talk about what we're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Hold on. How do I do this again?
Share. Okay. Yeah.
I see. Sorry, I don't use Zoom very often. Let's see, window. Okay, can you guys see this? Hello?
Yes.
You guys can see it?
The where? Yes.
Sorry. Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. So this is just our traditional marketing demo. I wanted to have the new trailer for King of Drag ready to show, but unfortunately it's not ready. But this kind of gives you a good overview of our original content and some of our like tentpole classic licensed content. It's about 30 seconds. So thank you. So that kind of gives you an idea. Oh, let me stop sharing. That kind of gives you an idea. It showed a lot of our original programs last season of King of Drag, which, like I mentioned, was our first real hit of the network. A stand-up comedy series called I'm Dead, which we're actually in the middle of releasing. I can talk a little bit more to that as well. And the IVL, which was it's a sports franchise that we launched. I can also get into that a little later, but we basically build relationships with the queer ballroom community. And that's not ballroom. That's like my reference is always like Madonna's Vogue video from back in the day. It's the ballroom community, which it had like basically one piece of general IP that HBO produced a show called Legendary. We came in and basically repackaged it as live sports, and we've been releasing it for the past several years. So, and more of that to come in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, we'll definitely dive deeper into things with you. Jared, do you want to go next? Thanks.
Yes, I'm going to hit share and then this and then share sound. All right.
Should be coming up, I'm sure. Fun with Zoom always.
Yeah, it wants my password to do this. Let me see.
So, well, you're doing that. Chris, when's King of Drag going to come out? The season 2?
September 20th.
Oh, awesome. All right, we'll have to all look out for that. All right. Go ahead, Jared.
Okay, let me know if the sound's going.
Incredible.
Can you hear that? Okay.
That's actually insane.
This is the world's first podcast operating system. Everything you need: plan, produce, publish, promote. One AI interface. Podcasting is becoming the most important tool for creators around the globe. We're removing the friction. What used to take days now takes a fraction of the time. You're working at the speed of AI, powered by frontier models.
I've been a creator for the past 10 years. Rebel Audio is going to be the first ever to fully encompass all of the things that you need to build out the podcast of your dreams.
This elegant, simple solution is powering the most impactful media revolution of our time. Hundreds of thousands of podcasts launch every month in an economy hungry for new creator tools. The space is exploding, and the old playbook can't keep up. We have tools nobody else has, sequenced into one proprietary operating system. Multi-language publishing, clipping, a full array of marketing tools. No other platform bundles all of this into one full stack solution. Everything at your fingertips. Turn one piece of media into many. One recording, endless reach. This is your launchpad to be heard and seen everywhere. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeart, with video capabilities that put you on every social media platform that matters, from Instagram to Substack, increasing your visibility as a creator in ways you've never imagined. This is how you become the next Jay Shetty, the next Joe Rogan, the next Alex Cooper. Everything you need to become a pod star, or simply how you tell the world who you are. Built by the team that created one of the largest creator platforms in music history, Jingle Punks.
And I'm going to do it again with Rebel Audio, this time leading into the world of AI, building faster, leaner, and better than ever before.
The world's first podcast operating system. Welcome to the world of social audio. Welcome to Rebel Audio.
Woo! Woo! Nice. I like it.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that looks great. I'm definitely going to have to check that out. So thanks for sharing that. I think what's really cool is just, you're making tools, Jared, that make, people's lives easier to get into this, right? John, you're making platforms to make, the interactivity that much more expansive. Chris, you're starting to tell more and more new stories that need to be told and bring kind of a wider base into the media world. And I think that's what this is all about, this panel, which is really like all the new opportunities that exist aren't just opportunities anymore. It's like, it's real, it's live, it's all available, and people are building businesses around it. And I think that's what excites me about talking today with this. So why don't we dive in? I always like to start with kind of like a common question that each of you can answer. And I'm going to play off a riff off of the title that Victor came up with for the panel of Streaming, Creator Economy, and Podcasts equals a Media Realignment. And I'm going to ask each of you, like, do you agree with that statement? And, if so, why? Or is it not a realignment? Is it something else? And what would it be if it's not a realignment? And how would you define what's happening now in the media world and the media economy? And John, I'm going to pick on you first. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think from the POV of streamers and distribution specifically, I think the realignment started taking shape during COVID, and I think during the pandemic, and I think the move was I want to be first position and become the first screen instead of the phones. And that really accelerated this whole library creation. There's tons of content now, and it was such a big important thing to load up those platforms. Um, I think that happened, and then there's just a lot of that fragmentation now. And so you see some consolidation or attempts at that, and I think that's where we're in right now. And it's how do we keep people in those streaming platforms? I think that's the key part.
Good. Chris, what's your take on it? Are we going through a realignment, or would you call it something else?
No, I think realignment is the correct term, because it's shifting the power dynamic. I think with I mean, the old school um, setup used to be that the networks and the platforms had all the power, and they were very much the gatekeepers. This was one of the things that we were trying to kind of work against when we started Reverie. I have a background in a lot of working in traditional media like NBC Universal, networks like that, and we wanted to kind of like put the content in the hands of our audience directly. And what you're seeing right now is that's what you're seeing with the creators really owning the audience relationship, which has majorly shifted the dynamic. And of course, like the executives are still making big decisions and platforms still have a lot of sway, but it's just they're kind of at the mercy of, in many cases, the creator who owns these relationships. And they're very valuable because it's not just about views or about forcing content in front of people's eyes. It's about this long-term strategy and really consumers really identifying with the brand. And as we know, that leads to more consumer behavior, buying products, building businesses. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it seems like the traditional world was the only world, right? Because they could deficit finance things, and now anyone can create anything they want, and if they find an audience, it can explode. And I think that's really the cool opportunity. And now you're finding businesses capturing that, right? And companies like yours, Jared, are enabling it to make it easier, right? And Chris, you're enabling distribution for these new things. So I think it's really cool how that's all shifting. Do you guys agree with that, or like how are you seeing that shift going? And are businesses able to be built off of this? And maybe Jared, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, obviously every business, traditional media business got flooded with, every, type of business you can imagine in the pre-COVID era. You had film production companies, you had television production companies, you had people who still were minimizing the impact of social media and relying on traditional media. But through COVID, I think we learned that the creators were going to become more and more popular. We were captive and captive audiences for a specific period of time, which became extremely lucrative for the first movers. But the interesting thing is right now, I see this as the first time in a long time with AI where the distribution and the picks and shovels and the tools are going to be disrupted in a pretty big way. And coming off of Cannes Lion and seeing how powerful the creators are compared to the traditional agencies, the agents, the media companies, and people going, oh my God, like I need access to these people. Really, what I'm trying to build is a fast gateway for creators of the future as a discovery platform. I'm not really trying to necessarily move over the Joe Rogans, the Color Daddies, or the Jay Shettys into my platform. 9 out of 10 people producing podcasts, they don't even know who their distributor is. These are like very vanilla products. But if we can create the same type of volume that we had with Jingle Punks, where thousands of creators were putting their music in our library. And as a byproduct, many people don't know this, the byproduct of Jingle Punks was Little Dicky and Jelly Roll, because although we had 500,000 pieces of music, those people rose to the top. And unfortunately, unfortunately, the parent companies that bought our business didn't know what to do with how to upstream things. So that's something I'm contemplating as I'm building this business now, which is let's give people the tools, let's see what happens, let's disrupt. And if things pop off and grow bigger, let's have a plan in place to be able to support and, have an ecosystem that allows bigger creators to have access to brands, have access to deal flow, IP, derivative deals and stuff like that. So that's just to the point of that this is the disruption point. There's a lot of traditional DSPs and video platforms that are built on legacy models and legacy technology, and this is a time where take the tools and sprint because
Yeah.
the window's only going to be open for so long.
Yeah. Well, Chris, what's your take on that? I know in the prep call you kind of were like, I don't know, claiming that you're kind of like a traditional media company, but it doesn't seem like it. How do you approach this, and what's your take on building your business in this new world?
I mean, it's a mixed model. We definitely take from traditional, even like something as simple as one of the biggest distribution avenues is fast distribution, which is basically old school linear television reinvented. I mean, it's definitely better. It's the lean back TV experience, which is very beneficial because you're getting that passive audience participation. But it's of course it's smarter, it's more targeted, it's truly free. So I love that aspect of it, but it's like a multi-pronged approach, right? So there's the kind of like passive experience of us distributing our content on all the major contenders, Pluto TV, Samsung TV Plus. That's new people that are experiencing Reverie for the first time. Many times they don't know that we're a queer network. I always say we didn't name ourselves Rainbow TV for a reason. We wanted to have like longer legs and be able to develop with our audience and with the broader culture. But the other aspect, and this is what we're learning from the changes and the realignment of the media, is working with creators who already have authentic following and that the community that we're serving already wants to see and interact with, and that are able to transition to more traditional fare. Like for example, I talked before about the our stand-up comedy series I'm Dead, which part of the casting for that, because it's relatively simple concept. It's 12 comedians. Every episode is kind of a 8-minute segment of one of those. So it's 3 different comedians for every episode. And that was all devised very strategically, and part of the strategy was around the casting. So it wasn't just who are these comedians, it's whether they have a social presence, whether they already have a built-in engagement, because part of the way we're rethinking about distribution is how, and this is exciting because we're creating more content now, but in its inception, we're thinking for online distribution. We already treat YouTube like it is one of our third-party channels. And so now we're actually preparing some of the content at the onset for distribution. That could be shorter form content. Even the whole idea of with I'm Dead, we specifically told the comedians to, even though if you were in person for the taping, you just experienced a 26-minute set, but they were specifically instructed to have that be able to be broken down into 8-minute segments. So like you're telling a long story, have it end there, because we knew that that's going to be a huge part of the distribution. And we also weren't holding it back. We've been releasing the content as we've been releasing it on VOD and fast, because like in our experience, we've been doing this for 10 years. There's actually not a lot of cannibalization or overlap of these audiences. There's different people on Instagram. There's different audiences on Facebook. There's different audiences on TikTok. So we're trying to take advantage of that and be smart.
That's awesome. So, John, Chris clearly mentioned probably your favorite word, engagement. So, you're obviously, it seems like, from my take, right, working with the traditional media companies to find ways to drive that audience engagement and maybe help them, be more relevant in this world of streaming and so on. How do you see the traditional media companies evolving here? Are they embracing, what you're starting to bring to market or offering, and do they recognize that we got to do something here? Like, how do you see working with them?
It's a great question. I think it's very timely. I've been noticing and seeing now, and some of the biggest streamers in the world now, they have these engagement interaction departments, like whole teams of people that are dedicated to figuring out the keys to engagement. How do we get the user to engage? Before it was, it's a department for, team for retention, right? Or an acquisition, but now it's a whole thing about engagement because we've all discovered that engagement drives that retention, right? Drives more user acquisition through word of mouth. So that's the parent level, I think. Instead of just being like, let's go after this one thing and that thing, the prescription, it's now looking at it holistically. So it's really fantastic to see that that approach, and it's definitely one of those timely things because sometimes I think we created our own problem with lighting up so much content on all socials, just everybody out there. It's one of those kind of moments where it's okay. We need to be because everyone has a drama, everyone has a crime thing, everyone has whatever a love story, right? But how do we now make something different? We let them engage, and I think that's a key that everyone's been noticing. So I think the support has been fantastic, and everyone's on board.
That's great. So it's I guess I really first I just want to acknowledge I love that you're seeing like engagement teams forming more so than just like media buying teams and optimization of customer acquisition. The idea of retaining people into these platforms and so on is key. So one of the things that I liked that you guys kind of all touched on as well is, creators are the new distribution channel. They're also the new celebrities. How does Hollywood see that? Do people recognize that creators are celebrities? Do we treat them as celebrities? Like I know my daughter, who's 12, does. But do they get the same cachet as an A-list movie star in this? Chris, you want to touch on this first?
They should more. I mean, even more so. It's
they
funny
have like way more followers than most actors do, right?
No, true. Like in the old star system of like Hollywood, like in the 90s, I mean, it could probably be argued that like Tom Cruise had more. There weren't followers, but more fans, right? But it was all at the mercy again of the gatekeepers, right? It was just dependent on the next studio that decided to hire him. And that had a lot of cachet, but now I think that there's like a combination of they definitely see value, but there's also a fear, right? Because they don't need them fully. Now they do for strategy, and this is where like strategy and access to brands, like things that will increase their longevity because they're still dependent on the platforms, right? The monetization. If you're a creator on Patreon or YouTube, you're really dependent on those algorithms and or the rules of like how they're allowing them to monetize. And we saw with like what happened to BuzzFeed a few years ago, when they were really dependent on distribution via Facebook, and it just relied that's all it took, right, to take away their power. So I think creators are aware that it's not just them and that they need kind of the other gatekeepers, but the gatekeepers are, and myself included, if you want to call me that, are certainly aware of the value that that creators have.
Yeah.
So let me.
Smart. I think some nervousness.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I think
go ahead, John. No, go ahead.
Saying, but I think if you bubble up to the size of a David Dobrik or a Mr. Beast and the Addison Rays of the world, then you are rolled out the red carpet for you. I mean, it's massive. I think you have to get through this certain level, and then you're treated like that, like you were saying, Mark. But I think it's just I think it's harder to get there because there's so many people out there taking swings. But I think now you have a good opportunity as well because of all those new tools out there and new platforms and AI to help. So it's always growing,
Yeah, well, I think part of the point, and even I think Jared, with what like technology like what you're building, is like anyone can take their stab at it, right? You don't have to go plead and beg a studio to fund your movie or your TV show and so on anymore. You can just go out and do it. I mean, isn't that the whole point, Jared?
It's been a hot minute though since people have been able to get to that, go from 0 to 20, 30 million followers. Like when I think again back to the COVID era, when we just started coining the word doom scrolling, a new type of celebrity emerged. And weirdly, again, back to Cannes, spending time with Big Mike, Mike Malak, who's my chief creator in residence, and some other people that were, part of our entourage that week, like MD Motivator, who, by the way, I had no idea who he was until, I saw them being mobbed on the street with people trying to take pictures of them. These are people that have 25 million plus followers. And, I used to, when I would go to Cannes, think that I had juice to go to a certain event, A, B, C, D. And this year I was like the old cowboy coming out, peeking my head out for the first time pre-COVID, being like, I wonder if they still know me at this place. And, watching them seamlessly get like 7 wristbands for VIP at Spotify, while like other, reality stars and artists were like struggling to figure out how they were going to get in, was eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
And also so that power shift is really happening. But to the first point, we haven't seen hyper expansion of like the new David Dobrik's or the new Kardashians, or like those numbers are insane. People that have like 20 million to like 100 million followers, you would have to do something pretty crazy in the media right now to like ever sprint like that ever again. Where, I think the last time we saw somebody sprint like that was the Hawk Tuah person going from zero to being a legit influencer. Like, I'm talking overnight. There's been other people, here and there that steadily grow, but I think that most new creators are struggling with like, how do you get to this new audience
Yeah.
when
They kind of like peak out maybe at 1 million, and then
million?
it's like,
I mean,
yeah.
you have to be doing something completely insane to get to 10,
Yeah.
15. I mean, like, look at the Bieber numbers, the Selena Gomez, those are just The Rock, I guess, is in that sort of like 40 plus. It's just very odd. But I do think that podcasting, the new niche, allows you to find 30,000 people that are super dedicated to your voice,
Yeah.
and monetizing that is actually easier than having 1 million Instagram followers.
Yeah. All right. So then I got a follow-up question for you, Chris. If you are casting for your next show, do you, and all things being relatively equal, if someone is maybe a little less talented but has way more followers versus candidate number 2 for the role, do you go with someone who is more talented but less followers, or less talented but way more followers?
I mean, we're experimenting with this now. This like kind of like play into the influencer world is still relatively new. Last year we actually picked up, we didn't underwrite, but it was a original musical film by a very popular influencer. Because like the thing is, everyone wants to be everyone who's like an entertainer or an actor wants to be an influencer. Everyone who's an influencer wants to be an actor. It depends, right? Like, for us, there's multiple benchmarks we need to hit. So it's not, yes, I would absolutely love the engagement, because that goes to, the brand affinity, and it's a deeper connection and everything. But at the end of the day, we're making content, so it needs to serve another purpose as well. So you need to kind of have the chops when it comes to, like, in the case of like stand-up comedy or acting, or like, and this is actually, I think reality TV is more conducive to the kind of crossover between people who are obviously getting good engagement from a core fan base, for them to be able to carry that over to a piece of content where we're putting them in a different environment. And that is actually something we're exploring more of next year with a show we're developing that I can't speak to, but it's more of your traditional reality TV show as opposed to reality competition show. But yeah, it's so many things need to be addressed.
Yeah, nice. So John, coming back to you for a second. So, as part of what you're offering, it's almost like an overlay, or just a second screen experience with other elements of content tied to what someone's watching. How do brands fit into that? How does monetization fit into that? Can you talk to that element to, are consumers paying for the engagement, or are they just, it's subsidized by a brand or the streaming platform? Like, how do you see monetization and brand integration working?
Yeah, it depends. So if we're embedded into a streaming platform or sports organization, it's free for the users, for the audience, and they monetize it through advertisements. We just launched a World Cup app with our scanning AI, our capture AI, called Foreplay World Cup, and that is sponsored by Paramount. And so it just depends on the application. But the monetization usually comes from the streamers and sports just putting their advertisements in there that they already have.
Got it. Jared, what's your take on monetization? Because I know you mentioned like obviously there's a high degree of very successful podcasts, but then all these new folks coming in, can they expect to if they get 30,000 downloads or views or watches, can they expect to make some money out of this? And what's your take on monetization for creators in this world? Oops.
I think he's
Not sure.
frozen. I have one more point if he's still
Sure, please, John.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just
sorry.
gonna
Jared,
say,
we'll come to you in 1 minute. We'll come to you in
oh,
1 second.
sorry.
John's going to make
I
a
was
point.
just,
Go ahead,
I
John.
was just going to say because one thing that we're really experts on is getting people to increase their session time. And for a lot of companies that have that are fast, they're ad supported, if we can increase it by 16, 40 something minutes, which is what our average is, then all of a sudden the monetization engine just kicks in. So it's about not only stopping churn, but it's about if you're fast, it's about keeping the users there, adding those minutes on, so that you can bank on that traffic and bank on that monetization. So we discovered
That's a great point.
yeah.
Jared, did you want to go?
Oh, hey, sorry. Apologies. I'm in the country here, so every now and then Starlink, Elon Musk just dropping off here. But I would say that the biggest monetization hurdle right now for anybody in the influencer space is really attribution. There was a time when brands just blindly gave money to people for posts. And this, oh wow, this person has like will dance on TikTok and like I think that the new podcast overlay that we're seeing that's making its way over into clipping and then also like these trends like yapping and then also like UGC, it still is a little bit the Wild West. That's why these picks and shovels, tools that we're building, it's like a sandbox. So we're giving our basic creators the same type of tools that pro creators have, for doing clipping or multi-language, but putting it in one area. The other buzzword of Cannes this year was, the place where there's white space for disruption is measurement, attribution, and showing brands a real deliverable. Because I've been part of, even in the Jingle Punks days, like I would do a big theme song for the Miami Marlins with DJ Khaled or the UFC with G-Eazy, and we would get a giant check. They'd call it, celebrity marketing or experiential marketing, but we never really knew what that money was how that was attributed back to a brand other than just going, hey, here's a cool earned PR moment. And nowadays, when you're on Instagram or on TikTok or even on podcasts, so many moments are happening at every second, at every moment that like you have to go beyond just like a WTF moment. You actually have to show how it like lifted something up.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. I get it. Chris, I know you mentioned that you guys work closely with brands and brands are, your sponsors or subsidize some of your shows. Can you talk about the monetization side for you and how you're working with brands and what they're, kind of following what Jared even just said, like, what are they looking for when they're working with you?
I mean, more so now they're wanting conversion, so they're wanting actual measurements. It used to be, and I'm actually not bemoaning the fact that we're not it's so much in this world, but it used to be that they would just show up seasonally for like logo slaps, and they were fine with it, and we were fine with it. Usually Pride, right? Thankfully, we're kind of moving away from that. I think that the brands are understanding that to actually resonate with the community and get the conversion, they need like cultural fluency. They need to be authentic. They need to do partnerships with the correct brand or creator. And then they need to do something that's holistic and that really doesn't feel like cold and calculated. But in like our RFPs, we're definitely seeing more requests. Oh, sorry, I kind of lost my thing, went to sleep. We're kind of seeing more requests for like brand lift studies and out like just, you know, stuff that really shows movement and resonance with the community. And it's not always like buying products. It could be online chatter. We were very successful last year. Our model is has traditionally been that we would basically only green light a new show if we could bring in an advertiser. And again, this is the old, like, you know, soap opera model. This is what's old is new. Now, thankfully, we're moving past that. And like, I say thankfully because the only issue and the frustration in the past with this model of only greenlighting an original, we can convince an advertiser to be aligned with it, is that it's really making that advertiser the gatekeeper. And I love advertisers, but they don't always know entertainment. And they tend to want to play it really safe. And like something that was frustrating, and this is why we're getting more into just underwriting our content, was we tried for years to get a sponsor for King of Drag. And we thought the premise was actually pretty easy to understand. We're like, hey, it's like, you know, RuPaul's Drag Race, huge, super hit, like multiple Emmys. It's like that, except it's women dressed as men, which is, by the way, an oversimplification. And people, the advertisers were like, we don't know what that is. We don't trust it. We don't like, so we were like, look, we know this is going to resonate with our community. This is a aspect of the community, a niche within the niche, if you will, that has been hungry for it for 20 years of Drag Race. So we're like, let's just do it. We know it's going to work. And thankfully, Elf did come in. They came in, though, after it was like a couple of weeks before we went into production. And they've been an amazing sponsor. We have like really, like the integration is really interesting. We do these things called these tip jar segments, which are released on social. It's obviously very aligned because these are performers who use makeup, right? It's a huge part of the aspect. And we even did last season, we would do a survey, which is always a little scary when you're running like a live show and you do a survey to see how many people like showed up. And it was mainly about Elf. And it was like the turnout was insane. It was like we've never had a survey where people were just, you know, and they weren't even answering questions that were directly related to the show. It was stuff for Elf, but they were really supportive.
Yeah, Elf seems like a great brand. I've listened to their CMO and team speak many a time, and I mean, very innovative and cutting edge with what they do. So very cool.
They're doing cool stuff on TikTok, and yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we have a few more minutes left, so I'm going to try to sneak in one more question before our little final thoughts. So, who wins in this grand realignment that we're going through? Is it a platform? Is it a technology? Is it the creators, the brands, the ad agencies, the media companies, the streamers? John, who do you think wins in this?
I think the
grand
audience.
scheme of things.
I think the
audience.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think they have to win and they will win because we're all at the end of the day catering to them. So that's all the focus and attention and the thought and the brain power is on them. So I think they're winning and I think they should.
That's great. Love that. Jared, who wins?
In the future, I think creators and the audience. I think that there's the television for years. If you read Barry Diller's book, he had that aha moment when he saw that it was going to become more interactive when Home Shopping Network and QVC became this two-way portal of interactivity. This is like pre-internet. And, I think traditional media will always be relevant. They've held on and been fighting the good fight for years. But right now it seems like the audience and creators really have like true alignment right now, where if you have a good story to tell, even if it's super small, if you're the best treehouse builder or logger or whatever, you're going to find your audience and you can monetize it.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to start lining up my next series of shows. Chris, what's your take on who wins in the realignment?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the audiences, because they're kind of the ones that are in control. They're calling the shots. So the ones who are deciding whether or not to engage. And we assume when they're engaging, it's with something that resonates with them and that provides them value. So that's great. And the creators are the ones I think the winners on the creator side are the ones that are able to take this engagement and viewership, which doesn't necessarily in and of itself generate revenue or monetize, and are able to turn what they do into a brand that is a sustainable, durable business, and that's multifaceted with experiential products, merch, and you see a lot of them doing that. I think on the platform side, it's the ones that are aligning with the correct creators and that are like also collecting data around the habits of these audiences, because it's not just views, right? It engagement is so like far beyond. It goes to like word of mouth, like back the old school like water cooler conversation, which is still a thing right now, and it still definitely adds to the value. And you see this even with traditional media, like these big hits like Backrooms and Obsession, which are just these like cultural juggernauts that you're seeing like the conversations and like just permeate the media. And of course, that's resonating into actual dollars.
Nice. So John, is this like the best like sizzle reel for you with your
I
business
love
to
it.
have Chris just talk about engagement for 30 minutes, I think?
I love it. Actually, it's an attempt to echo what pieces of what people are saying is that bidirectional, that two-way, the interaction. I mean, I think the way this all works out is if we empower the end user by letting them into the conversation, is what we're trying to say, giving them a voice
Yeah.
because they know that's important. And we all know that's important. Social media has taught us that, right? And so we have a voice, it's valuable, we're worth it. So if we empower them by being let into the conversation and let them dictate what they want to interact with and when, I think that's how everybody wins.
Got it. That's great. All right. So we got to wrap up here. So I'm going to ask you guys for final thought. And the way I thought maybe it would be interesting to end this would be um, what's like the hardest thing today to do in this space? Is it, something for creators or something with distribution or getting funding or monetizing? What's the hardest thing still to do today in this new media world? Jared, you want to go first? Oops, I might have lost him again. All right, Chris, you're going first, and we'll pick Jared back up.
I mean, it goes to like content. Content is always hard, right? But like now I think that like it's always been about the audience and what they want, like not speaking to them, but like deciphering what they're looking for. But I think the good news is you have so much more data around that. You're able to see what they're into and what resonates, and you can see it in real time. So although content is still difficult, I think that if you're not just like soullessly looking at data, you're looking at trends, you're talking to people, and you're testing things out and intuiting what like the audience wants. And this is, by the way, this is easier when you're talking about quote unquote niche audiences, which are not necessarily small, by the way. They tend to be actually very large. They can be very large and very engaged. And they don't, just because they're underserved doesn't mean they're underperforming or that
Right.
they can't. But it's still that though, despite all the insights you're getting, it's always content. What do they want?
Got it.
While I
Jared,
got my good reception
yeah.
here, I was to say that I think not the hardest, but the easiest thing right now, I think, is funding for new ideas and new creators in this gold rush moment. At the beginning of any gold rush, the door will open quickly, and that's why you've seen fundraising, which I've been unfortunately or fortunately been doing for the last literally since 2020 within various forms of my media business, and money shows up in weird ways and then it disappears and it shows up again. But right now it's shown up because of three or four different things all converging at the same time: AI, podcasting, and creator economy. So if you sort of are hitting a whole, and again, anything interactive, anything disruptive right now, that's the foot race is on for new ideas. I would say content's always the hardest thing to race against, but I'd say that right now, if you are building tools for those creators, you're seeing funds pop up everywhere, and that goes across
Nice.
Hollywood, Silicon Valley, New York.
Oh, lost.
Uh-oh. Silicon Valley in New York. We got it. John, you want to bring us home with what's still the hardest thing out there to do?
Yeah, I think it's picking a path because I think you could like which one do you do? You know, you let's say you have time and all these resources now and tools. Do you create content? Do you create the tools and the pickaxes and shovels, right? I mean, it's just yeah, it'd be hard to make a decision now if I was put back into, step one, fresh eyes, right? So I think picking the path that's best for you long term and kind of playing reverse chess, like what do you want the end goal to be?
Yeah.
Like who's involved? What does that look like? What are the different paths to get there? I think just making a decision is hard.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to approach this like building software. Like, what's the MVP? And
Yeah.
then, like, how do you stair step
Really got to
through
think
it?
it through all the way from beginning
Yeah.
to the end. And I think
Yeah.
that's
And
fun. I
have,
think it's an awesome time
yeah.
because now
Have
you
a,
can
ro-
make a decision. You have options.
yeah. And have a roadmap versus just like, hey, I'm going to go do everything all at once. You're
Yeah.
right. So, well, gentlemen, we're unfortunately out of time, but I really appreciate you guys sharing your demos and some of your reels and sharing your experience and what you guys are working on. I think it's super cool. I love all the talk about engagement. I know that's been a big thing that's been missing in Hollywood for years, and it's great to see much more of it. And it's great to see all the new opportunities that are being created, either Chris by a channel and service like yours, or Jared by new tools that you're making it easier for all of us to get in the game. So thank you all for your time today. And for the folks that are tuning in and listening, we appreciate you as well. Thanks for joining us for this last hour. And we'll see you again on another panel here at Digital Hollywood. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jared.
Thanks,
Thanks, John.
everybody.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Mark. Thanks, guys.
Thank
See you
you.
guys. Bye.